Hello, welcome to another edition of your favorite parliamentary news magazine program, The Chamber, right here on City TV. It's been a very interesting and packed week on the floor of Parliament, and we're here to serve you the very best of what you need to know about what your members of Parliament have been doing this week. My name is Duke Mentopoku. We'll take a break. When I'm back, we'll begin our show for the week. You're welcome back from the break. As we usually do, we start with a recap segment where we bring to you the major stories that have dominated headlines in Parliament that have been captured in our news format. So here is the recap for the week. On Monday, the MP for Swami, Oseche Mensah-Bonsu, escaped a near attack from constituents over the nature of roads, but on Tuesday, as if by design, government laid the much anticipated agreement for 140 million euros for the construction of the Swami interchange.
Buyer's credit agreement between the government of the Republic of Ghana, represented by the Ministry for Finance and Dutch Bank SAE as arranger, structuring bank mandated lead arranger and agent for an amount of 135,396,518 euros and 38 cents, supported by a CESCE insurance premium to finance the design and construction of phase 1 of the Swami interchange and ancillary works project at Kumasi, Republic of Ghana.
Honourable members, the agreement is duly presented. It is referred to the Finance Committee for consideration and report.
Earlier, the minority addressed the press on the torture of suspected illegal miners by the military in Obuasi last week. They called for an independent probe.
The minority find this development most unfortunate, disturbing, and we strongly condemn the use of brute, excessive, and disproportionate force in the so-called fight against illegal mining. This flagrant disregard of our laws and constitution under the Akufo-Addo-led government is most unfortunate and must be roundly condemned in the strongest terms possible. We find this incident despicable. We find this incident unfortunate, and we find this incident highly reprehensible. Even more disturbing is the fact that the Akufo-Addo-led government has remained mute following this incident. This is a heinous crime meted out to ordinary Ghanaians. The minority therefore wish to call on government, particularly the Minister for Defense, the Minister for Interior, and the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources to, as a matter of urgency, constitute an impartial, credible investigation into this dastardly act, and whoever is found culpable must face the full rigors of the law. Ghana is governed by the Constitution, we are governed by the rule of law, and the minority would not sit unconcerned for some few people to mishandle and demean the very basic rights of the ordinary Ghanaian.
The Member of Parliament for Commander Edina Iguafu-Abraham, Samuel Attamills, accused the Attamills Institute and the Coastal Development Authority of tampering with the tomb of former President Mills without recourse to a family. According to him, the act is culturally offensive and the family does not recognize the supposed institute doing as it pleases with the remains of the late president at Asumdue Park.
Why would you go and touch somebody's grave without informing the family? Now, the question I want to ask is this. Now that you've gone to touch it, is the body still in that grave? What did you put in that grave? What kind of rituals did you perform over there? Why would you go and touch the grave without informing us? Who has the body now? And that is a question that I want to ask Ghanaians. Who has the body now?
Recently, there were reports of widespread food shortage in senior high schools across the country. The situation was blamed partly on the debts owed the National Food Buffer Stock Company. Sector Minister Dr. Yaosiedu was in Parliament to answer questions on the matter.
Funding payment obligation of the Ministry of Education to the National Food Buffer Stock Company as at 18 July 2022 is 340,296,866 Ghana cedis and 8 pesos. Government is working towards payment of this outstanding obligation. However, government has released and paid this year an amount of 327,871,809 cedis and 10 pesos to the National Food Buffer Stock Company.
Earlier, the House approved a $750 million loan for infrastructure and growth-related development. Here are excerpts of the debate before the approval of the controversial facility.
Because of the fact that our debt is not sustainable, investors have started panicking to the extent that some of them have started exiting our market. The Speaker, I refer you to the committee's report, page 3, background. The Speaker, you will notice that the second paragraph says that consequently, non-resident investors in Ghana's domestic bonds market are pulling out of the country. For me, this loan, I agree that is important. The Speaker, I do not have basis to reject this loan on the grounds that it is going to, in a way, support the reserves. The Speaker, apart from that, I will have no basis to support this. Because as we speak, the reserves levels are very low. The Speaker, I agree that if you look at the budget statement, page 232 and appendix 3A, the Minister of Finance has said to us that they are going to the Eurobond market or maybe go for a term loan worth 4.8 billion US Ghana cedis. The Speaker, this translates to about $750 million US. And that is why I was at a loss that the Minister responsible for Finance had requested us to approve $1 billion US for him. The Speaker, we cannot approve $1 billion US. But I agree that the $750 million US is in the budget. And so it calls on all of us to support it. Mr. Speaker, because of the debt sustainability issues, the Minister must take steps to reduce government expenditure.
No one in this chamber will doubt the fact that COVID and the Ukraine-Russia war has affected the world economy. Nobody would be in doubt of that fact. And I'm happy that our colleagues have not disputed this fact. Somewhere. We have begun from somewhere. We'll get somewhere. So, Mr. Speaker, these must be considered, and I believe that government in good faith will utilize these funds for the purpose intended. Mr. Speaker, without more, I would like to thank you for the treasured space and urge colleagues to support this facility.
The ranking member on the Roads and Transport Committee, Gavin Kwame Abuja, raised concerns about what he called the duplicity of funding for the same government projects featured in the $750 million loan approved by the House.
We are not saying we are opposed to the 750. We believe that the clarity that has come so far is too limited. We want the Road Ministry and the Finance Ministry to come together and iron out these things so that Parliament will be well informed as to how these monies are going to be, because currently it appears as if we are duplicating monies we approved just a few months ago and we are taking from another source. For instance, if you take money, $170 million for all African Games, and for any reason you can't draw down, you need to officially say to Parliament, look, we have closed, or we can't utilize the money, so we need another money. But if you want another $140 million, without explaining to us, is it the case that you actually wanted almost 300 million and you didn't tell us, now you are just taking the money? We don't think that is a way of accounting to the people of this country.
The Speaker of Parliament dispatched the committee on a fact-finding mission after the police shooting incident occurred at the school last month. After meeting all the stakeholders, the committee's report, including recommendations, was presented to the House.
Committee requests the Ministry of Roads and Highways, as a matter of urgency, provide pedestrian crossing and speed ramps to ensure safe usage of the road by both motorists and pedestrians. The committee again requests that the Regional Director of the Department of Urban Roads in the Ashanti region should be sanctioned for failing to provide pedestrian crossing and speed ramps on the stretch of the road, although several letters had been written to his outfit in that regard. The committee furthermore concludes that the Ghana Police Service lacks the appropriate logistics to enable the service respond promptly to challenges of the crowd control and the ability of the service to avoid conflict of interest on its part in conducting fair investigations. The committee therefore recommends that Parliament should set up a bipartisan committee to further investigation the matter to the latter. The Minister of Finance and Economic Planning is also requested to release the approved budget to the Minister of Interior for the procurement of necessary tools and logistics for effective law enforcement.
Ranking member on the committee, James Agalga, shed further light on their call for a full-scale bipartisan probe into the matter.
We ought to have been directed to properly investigate the circumstances that led to the shooting incident at the Kumasi Islamic Senior High School. The reason being that the police, Mr. Speaker, have been fingered in this matter for using gratuitous force in controlling crowds made up of very young students. And so when you allow them to investigate themselves, Mr. Speaker, the end result could be that the investigation would be skewed in a manner that is undesirable. So this committee would have wished that we were asked to investigate the matter, come out with a report, and not to be directed to embark upon a fact-finding mission. But, Mr. Speaker, in the long term, I have advocated strenuously for us as a country, and this is a matter for policy, to establish an independent police complaints commission.
The House approved the report.
All against that say no. Ayes have it. The report of the Committee on Defense and Interior regarding the senior high school, the police shooting incident at the Islamic Senior High School in Kumasi, Ashanti region, is hereby adopted.
Following the confirmation of a 350 million Ghana cedi debt owed by the government to the buffer stock company, the Deputy Ranking Member on Education, Dr. Clementa Park, called on the President to order the release of funds to settle the debt.
How come we have allocated and approved 2.3 billion to finance the free senior school policy for 2022, and yet government is unable to pay buffer stock food suppliers? So we felt it was important for us to continue to advocate and to canvass and to call on government, to call on the President, to instruct the Minister for Finance to release the monies that we have approved for buffer stock food suppliers to be paid in full so that they can continue to supply food to keep our young men and women who are busy preparing for the Awasi well nourished, so they can have the serenity of mind, soul, and spirit to excel in the upcoming Wasi.
City TV is live on DSTV. Go to channel 363. On GoTV, access City TV on channel 182. On a digital TV, please press the menu button on the remote control and run a new search on your TV. Take note that without an antenna, you cannot access City TV on your television. City TV can be accessed on a free-to-air digital box like the GoTV and StarTimes box. City TV, it's your world.
This week on the From the Floor segment, we take you right onto the floor of Parliament to bring you the best in debates that transpired on the floor this week in relation to the $750 million loan from the AfreXim Bank that government is sourcing to complete key infrastructure projects across the country. This is a loan that has generated a lot of controversy. The minority initially had sworn thunder and brimstone not to agree to the passage of this loan. In fact, they indicated that they will have nothing to do with it. The flag bearer, John Dramani Mahama, flag bearer of the NDC, had actually indicated that there's no way they were going to pass the loan agreement. But the tune changed on the floor of the House due to what they call the national interest, because according to them, they had noticed that if this loan agreement is not passed, government and government services will be crippled in the next few months. So they, albeit grudgingly, lend support to this loan agreement. $750 million we're talking about. So we'll take you to the floor of Parliament where the debate actually went down. We'll bring you submission by submission from the leading speakers from the majority and the minority side, and you would actually know what the implications of this loan, which the first tranche is $750 million, the second tranche of $250 million, altogether making $1 billion, what kind of impact is expected to have in your life. Here is the debate from the floor.
The officials from the Ministry of Finance and presented this facility for the House's approval. The justification for government action is that government intends to secure, it is captured under paragraph 4, government intends to secure the credit facility to finance critical flagship projects under the 2022 budget. This arrangement has become necessary because of the decision by government not to use the capital market to raise financing until market conditions improve. Additionally, the increasing withdrawal of non-resident investors in Ghana's domestic bond market, with its implications for the level of reserves of the Bank of Ghana and foreign exchange management generally requires the injection of additional foreign currency to shore up the country's reserve to enable it meet its obligations when they fall due. Mr. Speaker, the terms of the facility are clearly stated under paragraph 6 of your committee's report, and the committee's observations under paragraph 7. Mr. Speaker, after considerable deliberation on the request, your committee came to the following conclusion. Yes, but before that, Mr. Speaker, under paragraph 7 on page 13, we see clearly the items that this facility will be used to finance. Table 2 on page 13. It is important to indicate, Mr. Speaker, that the ministry communicated that the above costs indicated are indicative. They are indicative estimates for the projects, and that in the actual execution, the figures may vary. The committee, Mr. Speaker, having carefully examined the agreement, is convinced that the facility forms part of government's international capital market program aimed at raising funds to finance critical infrastructure projects in the 2022 budget. Accordingly, we urge this House to approve this motion and to approve this facility in order that we may reap the benefit that the facility would bring.
Program in the budget and the programs for which this facility is going to be used is supported in this report. I support this motion and ask that this House approves this
motion that was moved by the chairman and seconded by our vice chairman. Mr. Speaker, in doing so, let me put on record, Mr. Speaker, I have serious concerns with Ghana's debt sustainability issues. Mr. Speaker, currently, from the data from the Ministry of Finance that was actually positioned and published on the Ministry of Finance website, it is clear that in the first quarter, Ghana recorded total revenue, tax revenue of 12.9 billion Ghana cedis. Of this amount, Mr. Speaker, debt service obligations alone debt service obligation alone, made up of interest payment and amortization, is 13.9 billion. Mr. Speaker, this simply means that the total tax revenue is not enough to service Ghana's debt. Mr. Speaker, that is why I'm saying that I have concerns with Ghana's debt situation. Mr. Speaker, this call on all of us to come together and work in a way that will ensure that our country returns back to debt sustainability levels. Mr. Speaker, as we speak, our debt is simply not sustainable, and it should be noted that this matter is of national importance and something that all of us will have to come together and deal with it. Mr. Speaker, as a result of the fact that our debt is not sustainable, investors have started panicking to the extent that some of them have started exiting our market. Mr. Speaker, I refer you to the committee's report, page 3, background. Mr. Speaker, you will notice that the second paragraph says that consequently, non-resident investors in Ghana's domestic bonds market are pulling out of the country from a high of 35% share of holdings in domestic bonds. The proportion of non-resident bondholders has declined to 16% as at end December 2021. Mr. Speaker, this is on the committee's report, page 3. Mr. Speaker, let me say that the foreigners holding in domestic bond declined from 35% to 16%. And this is before Ukraine war. This is before Ukraine war, so nobody can tell me that this is happening because of Ukraine war. Mr. Speaker, this is before the US announced quantitative, this was before Ukraine war, 1, 2, this was before the United States announced quantitative easing. Mr. Speaker, the elephant in the room is the fact that there's huge fiscal dominance, and there's the need for us to address it as a country. Mr. Speaker, as a result of this, when non-resident investors are exiting your country, what we should be noted is that they will exit with foreign currency, not your currency, not the cedi. They enter your market with foreign currency. So when they are leaving the country, you will have to give them foreign currency. The Speaker, as a result of that, what is happening is clear. Ghana's reserve position is dwindling and declining at an alarming rate. The Speaker, I just read a bulletin from Barclays Africa. And Barclays Africa is saying our reserves position has been dwindling, the largest in a decade. In fact, in the first quarter of 2022 alone, Ghana has lost reserves of 1 billion Ghana cedis, approximately. That's about 985 million US dollars. The Speaker, to approximate, it's about 1 billion US dollars in the loss of reserves. For me, this loan, I agree that it's important. The Speaker, I do not have basis to reject this loan on the grounds that it is going to, in a way, support the reserves. The Speaker, apart from that, I will have no basis to support this. Because as we speak, the reserves levels are very low. The Speaker, I agree that if you look at the budget statement, page 232 and Appendix 3A, the Minister of Finance has said to us that they are going to the Eurobond market or maybe go for a term loan worth 4.8 billion US Ghana cedis. The Speaker, this translates to about 750 million US dollars. And that is why I was at a loss that the Minister responsible for Finance had requested us to approve 1 billion US dollars for him. The Speaker, we cannot approve 1 billion US dollars. But I agree that the 750 million US dollars is in the budget. And so it calls on all of us to support it.
Mr. Speaker, if you look at the last but one paragraph in page 4, it says, and with your permission I read, the Ministry of Finance has therefore mandated the African Export-Import Bank, AfreXim, to support government to raise up to $750 million for the implementation of some flagship projects approved for loan financing in the 2022 budget. What this simply is saying is that the government is simply mandating AfreXim to go and look for money for it, for the government. So government has really not secured 750 million loan. And I'm surprised that this has become urgent after all the weeks we have been in this house, basically not having any work to do. And the government has been waiting and waiting until this point to now secure an agreement to mandate somebody to go and look for 750 million. How can this be urgent? Clearly, this is not agent. It's not as if people free today, tomorrow they'll go and draw down $750 million. They will only now have an agreement to get Exim Bank to go and look for $750 million. And we've been here for months. We've been here for months. So, Mr. Speaker, it's quite clear why the ministry was not forthcoming when we were pushing them to even appear before the committee. We'll go and sit there, adjourn a meeting, and they don't come. They really don't attach any seriousness to this transaction. Mr. Speaker, we have a very big problem on our hands. We have a Minister of Finance, we gave him a bucket full of water. He went and leaked that bucket, and all the water has drained out of that bucket. Today he's here with the leak bucket, saying that we should pour the last drop of water in that bucket. Mr. Speaker, how can we pour the last drop of water in the leaking bucket that the minister has leaked? It means this will lead to the same problem, no value, and yet will be incurred an additional cost of $750 million. Mr. Speaker, the biggest problem we have today with our IMF program is that unlike the previous one when we were sure that we were securing a deal, today our destiny is in our own jeopardized hands. Today, it will depend on the outcome of our debt sustainability analysis. And it is becoming very clear that our debt burden is our problem. The IMF Article 4 consultation recently said that in 2020, we spent 129% of our total revenue to service debt, and yet we are going for more debt. Mr. Speaker, I told the Minister for Finance at committee that in order not to push us to the position of Sri Lanka, where Sri Lanka is not assured of a program because they must bring their debt to sustainable levels, in order not to drive us to the situation of Zambia, when even after engaging IMF, they don't have a program because their debt is unsustainable and they must bring it to sustainable levels, I do not think we should give this government more money in order that it will even jeopardize our debt sustainability and we may not be able to get an IMF program. But, Mr. Speaker, I don't see why the Minister for Finance is still sitting there. If you want to give Ghana a chance to solve the mess that he has created, he must leave. The Minister for Finance was only appointed as a minister. You did not elect him as a co-president who cannot exit. So if the president has appointed a co-president for us, who now calls us his children, that we have now become a welfare issue. He has jeopardized our life such that he is now treating us as his orphan children. He should know that our laws provide that when an irresponsible father becomes a danger to a child, we take that child away and give that child to social welfare. So having succeeded in turning us into a social welfare problem, if the president will not sack him, he should have the humility to resign so we can recover from our koshoko. And that we are not even his children in the first place. It is a privilege to serve us. Don't call us your children because you have failed. You have destroyed our livelihoods. Today we are a laughing stock in the capital market. A whole country, Ghana, cannot raise 10 billion in 6 months on the domestic market. And the finance minister is the one still pushing this. Why? Is Ghana only destined for one finance minister, no matter how incompetent he is?
Has very strong fundamentals, which is also aimed at achieving economic growth of about 5%. Therefore, a shortfall in financing would derail significantly the fundamentals of the budget, which will hurt our economy so bad. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, it is important this House approves this facility in order to ensure that the economic fundamentals are not drilled. Also, Mr. Speaker, the committee was concerned about debt sustainability, but the effect of this facility can be contained within government's debt liability management, which has proven very effective under this finance minister. Both the cost of borrowing and the risk of borrowing have seen significant improvement. For example, the weighted average interest rate has been stable over the last 4 years. and the average time to maturity increased from 9 years in 2016 to 15 years in 2021. And so, Mr. Speaker, this finance minister has given effective debt liability management to the way our debts have been managed. And therefore, the effect of this facility will be contained under this liability management. Thirdly, Mr. Speaker, the facility is to be used for economic infrastructure in this country. The various projects that have been outlined, the Ofanko Nsawam Road, the Ejisu Konongo Road, the completion of the Nsawam Apeda Road project, completion of the Eastern Corridor Road in particular, is so important for economy and will provide an alternative link between the southern part of our country and the northern part of our country. And this is why I want to call on honorable members to support this facility so that we can support the growth of the economic base of our country.
Speaker, like the chairman rightly says in the report, today living conditions are difficult. The ordinary Ghanaian is suffering. Teachers are suffering. Nurses are suffering. Even MPs, we are suffering. Mr. Speaker, today inflation is at an all-time high. Our currency is the worst currency in Africa. If your currency is the worst currency among your peers, you can't say that it's everywhere. Because your currency matches against other currencies. So if your currency is in a free fall situation, don't tell us that it's everywhere. Mr. Speaker, let me quickly make a correction. In the report, there's a claim that we approved 1.5 billion to support the implementation of the 2022 budget, and I refer to page 5. Budgets are quantitative expressions of your income and revenue in terms of the figures. So if you just express that you thought of something, but we haven't captured that in the appropriation, let's deal with the 750, Mr. Speaker. We also talk about exports and claim that crude is one of the reasons why we are struggling. Mr. Speaker, Ghana is a net exporter of crude oil. And so if I sell a particular commodity and the prices go up, you cannot tell me that the increment rather affects us. And I'm putting on record, Ghana is a net exporter of crude oil. If you read the 2021 budget, we got 11 billion cedis from increments in gold, crude, and cocoa. And I have the figures here. Go and check the records from the Bank of Ghana in respect to our Petroleum Revenue Management Act. We are a net exporter of crude oil. That is a fact, it's not debatable. Mr. Speaker, we are also told that we have this problem because of COVID. Mr. Speaker, not long ago, the Minister of Finance was here. He told us that total COVID expenditure was 12 billion. That is the expenditure side. The revenue side, total revenue was 19 billion. So when you check how much he spent and how much he got, we actually made a profit of 7 billion. As if that is not enough, all the revenues that we got for COVID expenditure, this government is not servicing those debts. Neither are we paying for the interest, neither are we paying for the principal. Mr. Speaker, but more importantly, and this is something that, Mr. Speaker, I think I should bring to the attention of the House. If you look at the budget statement proper, and you look at our debt servicing, we are paying 7 billion this year. It increases by 2 billion to 9 billion. 2024, it increases by 2 billion to 11 billion. But in 2025, it increases by 11 billion to about 22 billion. By that time, this minister is no more a minister of finance. By that time, this government would have lost power and handed over to President Mahama. You are paying 2 billion, 2 billion, 2 billion, and you expect that when President Mahama assumes office in 2025, he should pay extra 11 billion. Mr. Speaker, why? This is in the budget. The Deputy Minister of Finance is sitting.
If what I'm saying is not true, she will rise up and challenge me. That's because we speak with facts. When we rise, we speak with facts. Mr. Speaker, President Mahama borrowed $3.7 billion from Eurobond. President Akufo-Addo has so far borrowed over 11 billion. President Mahama got just 3 billion from ESLA. President Akufo-Addo has gotten about 24 billion. Mr. Speaker, despite all these revenues, today the Ghanaian economy is in a state of pathos. The Ghanaian economy is in a state of comatose. The Ghanaian economy, there's nothing to write home about that. And rather than accept responsibility and deal with the situation, the Vice President told us that they've paid 17 billion for so-called take-or-pay agreements. Because we can put it on record. And the Finance Minister was here to answer that very question. Ghana has not paid 17 billion for so-called excess capacity payments.
The Speaker, if you refer to paragraph 2 of the report, of the said paragraph, the line 2. The Speaker, this is what the committee says, and they tell us this in unanimity. Additionally, the global economy, according to the IMF, was in weaker position than previously anticipated as a result of the emergence of a new COVID-19 variant. Further supply chain disruptions, crude oil hikes, rising global inflation, and geopolitical risk in the Ukraine-Russian war has affected growth and financing conditions. Mr. Speaker, clearly it is very obvious that this position taken by IMF, Ghana has also been affected by this situation. No one in this chamber will doubt the fact that COVID and the Ukraine-Russia war has affected the world economy. Nobody would be in doubt of that fact. And I'm happy that our colleagues have not disputed this fact. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the conclusion of the committee's report, Mr. Speaker, this is what the committee says. That after having carefully examined the agreement, the committee, in unanimity, is convinced that the facility forms part of government international capital market program aimed at raising funds to finance critical infrastructure projects in the 2022 budget. Approval of the facility, Mr. Speaker, according to your committee, will also enable government meet its revenue projections in the budget and support government liability management and ensure exchange rate stability. So, Mr. Speaker, the committee was clear in its mind what government was going to do with this facility. And in fact, government went on to provide indicative cost of the project. So, Mr. Speaker, all issues for clarifications, all issues of accountability, government cannot resolve from it. Because, Mr. Speaker, clearly the minister will be obliged to come to this House to report. So we would want to allay fears of members. But, Mr. Speaker, as to political and partisan comments, I will not go into it. We've not had the election for 2024. Obviously, this government has 2.5 years more to demonstrate its competence. And we have so far been able to introduce major social intervention programs, which programs have sustained the economy, but as these programs have come at a cost, no doubt. So, Mr. Speaker, whereas we would appreciate argument to be made on cost, in the same vein, an argument should be made on the investment made by the government so far. The investment made to save the Ghanaian who has saved his money and nearly lost money through the financial crisis we nearly entered into. The free SHS program has come at a cost. Ghanaians who were in very underprivileged situations are now enjoying quality education. Mr. Speaker, we have to begin from somewhere. We have begun from somewhere. We'll get somewhere. So, Mr. Speaker, These must be considered, and I believe that government in good faith will utilize these funds for the purpose intended.
Mr. Speaker, back to your committee's report, and these are our concerns as a group. May I, with respect, Mr. Speaker, refer you to page 10, paragraph 7.5. Mr. Speaker, maturity period. This country, in the hands of Minister Ken Ofori-Atta, is suffering from a debt overhang. That debt overhang is going to stagnate growth of the economy, and is going to further worsen cost of living for Ghanaians and standards of living. Because, as indicated by the ranking member, how can you spend 127% of your revenue on debt service and spend 13 billion on debt service? What is his interest in borrowing? That he borrowed, and he borrowed irresponsibly. But Mr. Speaker, when you come to paragraph 7.5, and this is my concern, according to the 2021 debt management report issued by the Ministry of Finance, about 3 billion will be due in 2024. So in 2024, this economy must brace itself for 3 billion to service debt. Where are we going to find that money? But even more worrying is that 1.5 billion of the country's liabilities will also fall due in 2025. Probably, as I said, if it doesn't go early, he will no longer be the Minister for Finance. He's deferring more of these obligations and burdens to the future. That is why we are saying that there must be a limit to borrowing. But Mr. Speaker, may I, in concluding, refer you to page 8 and paragraph 7.3. This is what the committee had to say. These challenges are further exacerbated by the rapidly dwindling reserves of the Bank of Ghana. So the Bank of Ghana reserves are dwindling. Mr. Speaker, watch the figures there. It says it has declined from 9 billion to about 3 billion. A deficit of 6 billion. So even when you borrow 750 million, you are only going to up your reserve to 3.7 billion. What will that do? What will that do to your terms of trade? What will that do to your epileptic fall of the cedi, which is depreciation against all other currencies? So, Mr. Speaker, I dare ask, how did we get here? How did Ghana get into this hole? Then Ken Ofori-Atta wants us to hail him as a superior Minister for Finance. I'm sorry, we will not. It's a mark of incompetence. He cannot borrow this much, put the country in this economic crisis, and want to walk with pride. He cannot. Mr. Speaker, never in our country's history under the Fourth Republic have we borrowed this much within this short period of time. From 120 billion inherited in January 2017 to over 400 billion. Just in a matter of 5 years. And you say you have superior debt management strategy. With debt management strategy. So it's only proper that we call on the president to dissolve the economic management team and look for better hands. He should dissolve it. Mr. Speaker, finally, I have an obligation to speak for local contractors. And my view is that the Finance Committee and the Ministry of Finance must dedicate some $100 million of this money for the payment of local contractors. Where to find it? I'm looking at the 140 to the $30 million meant for real. That money should go to local contractors. There is a group called the Small Medium Contractors, SMC Group. Many of them are dying early now because they cannot bear the burden of not being paid by the Minister for Roads and the Ministry of Finance. Finally, Mr. Speaker, if you want to appreciate the incompetence of Ken Ofori-Atta, he has borrowed against every reasonable funding sources available to Ghana. ESLA has given him in the last 5 years 22 billion. He's borrowed against it to 2030. Get fund. He's brought in Dachi. He's borrowed against Get fund. National Health Insurance is running on a bond. And you say you are a superior economic manager. Superior at where? So, Mr. Speaker, reluctantly, we have a duty to save the economy of Ghana from imminent collapse. We have a duty to save this country from the continuous epileptic fall of the cedi, which is affecting businesses and reducing the cost of doing business in Ghana and affecting living standards. We have a duty to support government to attempt to redeem the economy. We know they cannot. We know they cannot. But we have a duty to support them to attempt to redeem the economy so that John Dramani Mahama in 2025 will only be saddled with a burden of 1.5 billion.
Mr. Speaker, in the year 1999, there was a declaration even before the NDC went to Congress at Swedru to have Professor Atta Mills coronated as the flag bearer of the NDC. There was no Congress. Today, the member for Tamale South is making another declaration when no Congress with the party has held. It tells of the democratic credentials of the party in opposition. Mr. Speaker, they are so undemocratic that they don't have patience to even hold party congresses to elect their flag bearer. Mr. Speaker, but we are not there. We are not there. We saved the occasion. The declaration has been made here in the House. And you expose your backs for comments to be made on the declaration from Tamale South. Mr. Speaker, what we have before us is a report of the Finance Committee on the loan facility agreement between the government of the Republic of Ghana, represented by the Ministry of Finance, and African Export-Import Bank, AfreXim Bank, for an amount of $750 million to finance capital and growth-related expenditures in the 2022 budget. Mr. Speaker, the emphasis is the financing of capital and growth-related expenditures in the 2022 budget. Mr. Speaker, so this is meant for budgetary support, which indication has been given in the budget. Mr. Speaker, and I thought that was what we're going to limit the comments to. Unfortunately, people want to go into the debate on the anticipated mid-year review. And that is what my colleagues have attempted to do. Mr. Speaker, I will resist that temptation and limit myself to what is before us, except as a matter of record, to set the record straight, because we have no less a person than the Honorable John Jinapor, himself a former Deputy Minister for Energy, saying to us that Ghana is a net exporter of crude oil. Let's Speaker, I dispute that fact. Let's Speaker, I dispute that fact because on daily basis, the consumption of petroleum is 120,000 barrels. Let's Speaker, it's 120,000 barrels. What is our share in the daily production of crude? So what he's saying is incorrect, and he knows it's incorrect. What is our share of the production? What is our share of it? Because what is not yours is not yours. You are aggregating the whole amount and telling us and assuming that is what quantum is available to Ghana. It is not true. You know it's not true. So what you are saying is an incorrect statement that you are making on the floor of this House.
In favor of the motion, say aye. All against, say no. Ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker.
Motion is carried.
Mr. Speaker.
Hello, welcome back from the break. This is Duke's View, the part of the program where I get to share my opinion on happenings in Parliament. Well, this week is going to focus primarily on the media budget review that's happening next week. So, of course, on the next edition, we'll bring you what the Minister for Finance said by way of the review of the numbers or the exact situation of our economy half year, looking at all the numbers, looking at all the expenditure, revenue items, and all of that. So we have a number of areas that we would want to clearly present to the minister to look at before he presents that important speech on Monday. The first has got to do with the e-levy. Of course, it was the elephant in the room, the big elephant in the room during the debate, discussions, arguments, the approval process of the 2022 budget. We know it dragged. It just got approved a few months ago. Implementation started in May and all of that. There was a narrative which went around town that the failure of the e-levy in terms of pushing up the revenue numbers is what necessitated Ghana's going to the IMF. So exactly what are the figures? What numbers are being raked in by the electronic transfer levy, aka the e-levy? The e-levy. That's a critical question the Minister for Finance will have to answer when he appears before the House on Monday, the 25th. He would have to answer that question and account to the House so far since May 1. It's been about 2 months. How much exactly has been raked in? And is the e-levy doing as poor as we are being told? And what accounts for that? So that's something we'll be looking forward to. Number two, we are looking forward to the clear implementation plan for the Youth Start program. The Youth Start program is one of the initiatives that we're told is going to revolutionize employment opportunities in the country. And it was one of the key underpinnings of moving the country to an entrepreneurial nation, a nation of entrepreneurs, where young people would rather want to create jobs for themselves with their business ideas, to employ their colleagues, to employ their friends, to employ their competitors, rather than looking to the central government or the public sector for jobs. And the engine of development or growth for that was going to be the Youth Start. Okay, and we've seen NEIP and Deputy Minister Dr. John Kuma go around and speak to students and all of that. What is the clear implementation plan? When is this starting? What are the areas? And what is the clear implementation plan? We expect to hear about that in the mid-year budget review. Also, the matter of the IMF. We know that government in its projections and plans didn't have that on board, but upon a second look at all the issues surrounding our economy, government decided to head to the IMF. They came here on a data collation mission a few days ago and left. How has that, or how has the resort to the IMF changed our economic situation? Or how is it going to change our economic situation? What are the key indicators government is looking to entering into this program? We expect the Minister of Finance to report on all of these issues to Parliament when he comes to the House on Monday to present the mid-year budget review. It's a critical statement that a lot of people are looking forward to. Is the Minister of Finance going to bring a supplementary budget? Is he going to request for additional funding? Well, all these are answers that we'll find out on Monday. But we want, one, to have a clear accountability on the e-levy. Is it doing that bad that forces us to go to IMF? Two, what's happening with the Youth Start? When is it starting? What is the clear implementation plan? And three, the IMF and our program going to the IMF. The President said at the MPP conference or Delegates Congress or conference a couple of days ago that we're going to get a good program. What are the underpinnings of this good program that Ghana is seeking with the IMF? All of that would have to be laid bare on the floor of Parliament during the mid-year budget review. So it's a great opportunity for the Minister of Finance. We want to tell him that he shouldn't waste that opportunity and use that opportunity as a rallying ground once again to carry Ghanaians along in the quest to build our nation and to take back our nation from the twin disaster of COVID-19 economic recovery and the Russia-Ukraine war. That's how we wrap up today's edition of Duke's View and by extension the Chamber right here on CCTV. Keep watching CCTV for the very best in program. We'll be back same time next week to bring you the very best of what transpired at the media budget review with the Minister for Finance.